My name is Dustin Kelly, but everybody calls me DJ. I'm prior Army, serving as both a Ford observer and a military police officer. I've spent the last 14 and a half years as a police officer and detective in a large metropolitan police department. Two things that I've learned throughout my career. One, everybody has a story to tell. And two, the best stories are true. This is the DTD Podcast. Hey guys, welcome back to the DTD Podcast. This week in the studio, Colonel Retired Stu Bradin. He's the president and CEO of the Global SOF Foundation. He's retired as the U.S. Army Special Forces Colonel in May of 2014 after over 32 years of service. His Special Forces assignments included service with elements of Joint Special Operations Command and the Deputy Director of Operations at Special Operations Command Europe, and extensive service with the 7th and 10th Special Forces Group. He commanded several SFODAs, A-teams, and served as a battalion operations officer, as well as a company commander of the counter-terrorist unit designated as the CINC in Extremist Force. He participated in Operation Just Cause and served tours as an advisor in El Salvador and Peru. He's a veteran of multiple unconventional and other special operations with 10th Special Forces Group in the Balkans and numerous locations in Northern and Central Africa. We welcome into the studio. How are you, Stu?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you're on here. We finally got everything kind of worked together and we're able to hook up and do this. So we have so much to talk about with everything that's going on in Afghanistan, everything with your career. But I want to start off, as I was doing my research on you, you come from a military family. And not just a military family, but your father and brother are retired Army officers, and they served for over 53 years combined. With your 30 years, that makes it almost a century in one family of military. So my first question out of the box is, was there ever any expectations or worry on your part that you maybe wouldn't live up to the family, or was there expectations put in front of you that you thought, oh man, this is going to be difficult to do?
My grandfather was also in the military, so he was a sergeant major in North Carolina that got activated for World War II and then get deactivated until, I'd say, probably until the late 50s. Wow. So, yeah, we kind of grew up in this business and stuff. I had no intentions of coming in the military, to be frank. I was a football player, playing high school football at Hampton, Virginia, and, you know, the military was the last thing on my mind. I always dug it, you know, it was fun, but
right.
When you're 18 or 19, man, you have no idea what the heck you're doing. So I never really thought. I went to the University of South Carolina at first, and when they got in trouble, I ended up going to the Citadel. And I was more interested in going in the military as a lawyer and, you know, doing other things. And, you know, I'd always been inspired by the movie The Green Beret with John Wayne, like so many people that join our ranks. And, the more I got into it, the more I liked it. I was in the National Guard as an enlisted guy for a little over 2 years. And, you know, I just kind of, the more I was in it, the more I enjoyed it. The more I was in it, the more I wanted to do. You know, I always wanted to do something more, a little bit more than just, you know, and so ultimately ended up in the special ops world.
Well, let me ask you a question, because that was the interesting part to me. So as you started as an officer, you were an Army Cavalry Scout, and you were commissioned through the Citadel ROTC, and you came as an armor officer. So yep. I personally don't know of a lot of people that come from the armor area over into special ops. You mostly see infantry.
Tons.
Really?
I was a 19 Delta Cav Scout in the South Carolina National Guard, Troop B 713th Cav out of Beaufort, South Carolina. And, yeah, you see tons. I mean, Lieutenant General Fran Beaudet just gave up command of U.S. Army Special Operations Command. He was a Citadel graduate and was an armor officer as a lieutenant. Yeah.
Wow. I had never really thought of that. I didn't know that there was such kind of a rich history there.
Yeah, I started in Vietnam, you know, because armor wasn't used heavily in Vietnam,
right?
Like it was. And so a lot of those guys became aviators or came into the special ops world. So when I came into SF, there was tons of guys. We had just become a branch in 1987, and there were tons of guys that had started out in armor.
So you've done conventional and special operations. So in your eyes, what's the difference with you, the big difference between conventional and special? Because I've had a couple of guys on here that have done both, and everyone kind of has a little different answer of why they think the two are so different from each other.
It's just the level that you work at. It's higher expectations, it's higher risk, higher reward. You work in smaller entities. What you're generally doing is you're operating way out on the periphery, where you would never let a conventional unit do. Give you an example. So if you look at how conventional forces operate in combat zones, they operate inside of what's called the medevac ring. And the only people that can go outside that is special forces, and that's because the training of the special forces medics, it's just ridiculous. It's extremely high. And so because of their professionalism and their training and expertise, SOF can go outside the medevac ring, and conventional formations just can't do that. And so that alone allows you opportunities in the special ops world that you would never get in the conventional world. That's just a little vignette.
Well, I've had a guest on here that said that, when they talk about guys coming through the pipeline, they had it in Vietnam and then they've brought it back, where you go in a pipeline, just go straight into special forces. The worrisome that they had was that you get these young guys in there, and yes, they don't have any bad habits or anything, but that they're working at a level that they wouldn't have at that rank in a conventional army. So they're working with, general staff, they're working at a much higher level. And that was a concern for them, was he didn't know if they were quite mature enough yet, to handle things like that. Would you agree with something like that? I mean, you were in a command position, so.
So when I first came in, we had what was called Rep 63, SF babies, same thing. They brought guys in. They were either your very best or your very worst. And, the ones that stayed became some of the highest ranking NCOs, sergeant majors that we would have. A lot of them got out or got thrown out. So you get the two extremes. Now they have what's called the X-ray series and stuff. And when it originally started was because, everybody was deploying post 9/11, and the conventional force didn't like us pilfering their people. The other thing is, the people that we wanted didn't want to ban their units. They had a sense of pride about themselves. They didn't want to just bail in their units as they're getting ready to go to combat and stuff. Nor did they want to spend 18 months in a training cycle not deploying, right? So, I mean, people join the military to actually practice their trade. People, as crazy as it sounds, that's what they want to do. And so the SF babies, they were hit or miss. I had some great ones. Some of the best sergeant majors, some of the best NCOs I ever had were SF babies. I probably wasn't around, at the time when they were getting rid of. Most of them were senior, when I came in, so they had already been through the weeding out process. The X-rays are, again, it started where we were going to bring in guys. They had to have what's called life experience and stuff. But like most things, that just gets thrown by the wayside, and they were just letting anybody in off the streets and stuff. And they're great. They're smart. Only about 17% of them stay in the military. So, that's not good, because you've got a huge investment going into these people. I think the Special Forces Command has just made a conscious effort to go back and spend more time recruiting from the conventional force and the active army and the active components, because 17% is a bad investment. And so, even though you get some great people out of there, it's just not, you're losing money and you're losing time in that. So, their recruiting has changed considerably and stuff. And so you're losing a lot. A lot of them come in, it's kind of like the SEAL community. They have a lot of their enlisted guys or college graduates. They all just want to get in there. They want to get through buds. They want to get a couple pumps under their belts, some deployments. Then they want to get out, and go work on Wall Street and tell everybody they were SEAL. The X-rays, a lot of that's the same stuff. They're good people. They're not all bad people. It's just they got just a different calling in life. The problem is to get really good at this trade, you got to be in it for a long time. The guys, the sergeant majors that I had Kenny McMullen was my first company sergeant major in Panama when I showed up. He was a Sante Raider, multiple tours, Mac V SOG. He's a living legend. When he actually retired from Fort Bragg, North Carolina, he had more people at his retirement than they had at the 18th Airborne Corps change of command. Guy was, absolute legend. I grew up around those kind of people, and so I'm used to seeing these quality NCOs and folks that want to be there forever. They never want to be off a team. I think Sergeant Major McMullen was told that he had to become a command sergeant major in 3rd Group, or they were going to retire him. And that's the only reason he became a command sergeant major. He just wouldn't stay in an SF company or an SF battalion. He moved from A company, 3rd Battalion, we were in Panama, up to the ops sergeant major, and he was the ops sergeant major during Just Cause. He's the only time I've seen a sergeant major chew a colonel's ass like he was a private. It was priceless. It was absolute. I was like, dang, I've heard about it, never saw it. And he was not being mean or angry. He was just like, guy made a mistake. There was no free chicken that day.
Well, in talking about that, and you say you could get the best or the worst, the 17%, I've heard these other guys say, they come in to get the Trident, get a couple pumps under them, get out, start a gear company or something like that they can put that Trident to. In a kind of a different question, I know that you said it's not good because it's not a good return on investment. Can it ever be dangerous?
I don't know, man. To be fair, over the last 20 years, I've been at such a senior level. I haven't been involved much with the tactical guys. They're good. They're really good. Everybody, they're as good as they ever have been, despite what people think or say. They're extremely intelligent. No, I don't think so. The reality is you're trying to raise the future leaders, not just, in special ops, but in the Army or, the military. And so you want your investment to count. If you look around, like if you look at Afghanistan, Vesey was the SEAL 1-star that was there. And Josh Rudd, came out of the Ranger Regiment and worked at Fort Bragg, at JSOC. And he was the 2-star commanding the 82nd Airborne. These guys, we've all grown up around each other for the last 30 years. We all know each other personally, so they're out commanding large conventional formations and doing a fabulous job. It's that personal relationship, that trust, that bond, that everybody has. That's what you want. You want your junior leaders to become your senior leaders. So there's not a lot of drama. So when you're trying to get a whole bunch of people off an airfield and it's a complete disaster, you've got competent people that can, do everything in their power to make that happen. And so that's what you're looking for. And that's why you just want folks for a little bit longer,
When you were conventional, I know that you said you always wanted more and you always wanted to do more, but what was it that really, if there was one kind of event that said it's time to go over here? And there might not have been, there might have been a chain of it, but what was it that really set it into motion?
I was in the 11th Armor Cav on the East-West German border. We were deployed on the border 300 days out of the year. We had phenomenal autonomy. We were alone and unafraid. I had some of the finest NCOs and soldiers. I had some of the dumbest, shitbirds in the world too. But I will tell you, man, that was one of the best trained units. I learned more. My platoon sergeant, he's one of the world's largest Puerto Ricans in the world, man. He's massive. Used to be a basketball player at UPR. That is a beast of a man. Leonardo Pacheco. He lives 3 miles from me right here in Tampa. And I just learned so much from those guys, man, like how to, you thought you could learn. I'd been to Ranger school, all this bullshit, and I thought I knew what I was doing. But, when you're around these kind of guys, man, you just quickly realize how awesome they are. And I just wanted more autonomy. I knew I'd end up having to go back to the United States I'd end up in some battalion somewhere. And I was just like, I liked being out there with my little platoon on a platoon OP, with our own base. My first platoon I had 4 M1 tanks. I had 2 ITVs, which are, improved tow vehicles, 1 armor vehicles. I had 2 Dragon Track vehicles. I had my vehicle. I had an engineer guy, an artillery guy assigned to me, and a 4-deuce mortar tube, all in one platoon, 68 people as a second lieutenant. I mean, we let SEAL commanders, 05s, command that level. It's a massive thing.
Well, that's what I was about to say. For a second lieutenant, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, they give it to a dumb lieutenant and stuff. And then we reconfigured, and I had we went to Bradley's and M1's pure, and then I had a scout platoon, and but we would operate sometimes 20 kilometers between vehicles. Just you on your own vehicle, you're 20 kilometers away from the next vehicle. We were supposed to do all the screening and early warning when the Russians came across for World War III, and so you had to be good. Those track commanders and those section leaders had to be extremely good at what they did, because you had to keep the vehicle going, you had to fight the vehicle, you had to maneuver the vehicle. You had to do a lot of stuff, and you're just by yourself, man. You're just some E6 out there, just roaming the earth, with a big armored vehicle. And they were just great. And so I just thought, shoot, man, I just want to do something a little bit more. I liked it. So where else could I do that? And that was the special ops world. It was starting to become a branch. I was the first class recruited when it became a branch. So, it was semi-career suicide in the days, because, you would leave your branch and you would basically tell them, hey, I love you, but I don't love you enough to stay. And they would lie to you and tell you were always welcome back. But, the infantry branch would eat their own. Their whole deal is, if you don't make it, man, have a nice day. Walmart's down the street. But the armor branch was pretty cool about it. I think in my I went to the infantry advanced course. There were 14 armor cav guys in there. 13 of us went into the SF. Yep, we were all there to go into SF. So we all made it.
So let me ask you, does that still transfer over today? Are there really that many armor still doing it today, you think?
Couldn't tell you. When they all show up, when I was a lieutenant colonel, they were just guys with crossed arrows. I didn't,
Right.
Some of them were out there. Yeah. I'm sure there's still armor guys out there, and artillery and engineer and chemical. And, we get all kinds, man,
I haven't had anyone on yet on the show that has the experience from 80s, 90s that you do. And you talk about you were kind of the first line of defense when the Russians.
Is that your way of calling me old?
No, by no means. It's a serious question, though, because I don't think a lot of people know this, because, I think that part of history has, with everything that's gone on for the last 20 years, has kind of been, I don't want to say swept under the rug, but a lot of people don't think about that Cold War anymore. How tense did it get? Were there some real pucker moments while all that was going on?
Yeah, well, from my experience, I was on the East-West German border, so, we'd watch everybody, I'd say about every 8 months, they'd kill somebody trying to break, across the border. They just mow them down, man. So you saw a lot of that. I would submit to you around 1984, the Army went through a massive transformation where our leadership were guys that had fought in Vietnam, and they were angry. The Colin Powells, the Schwarzkopf, my father. That generation were pissed off. They won every battle but lost the war. They were angry with their leadership, and they vowed that they would never allow that to happen to the Army again. And so, when you saw Desert Storm happen, you saw the product that those leaders brought forward. They were hard, man. It was some unpleasant days. You just worked your butt off, man. It's legalized slavery. You just grind. Every day, 7 days a week. I think I'd gone 18 months in the Cav before I ever had a day off, like a Saturday or Sunday or something. It was just nasty, man. Just hard work. But great people, you build great relationships with the people like that you're around. You can't help it. You're all suffering together. So you learn to do stuff. But the Cold War was interesting. You have an entire generation right now in the military that's only grown up, in the 9/11 era. It's been 20 years, right?
Right.
So you have people that are going to actually retire this year. They've joined at 9/11. That's all they know. And, I laugh because everybody's now talking about the great power competition and how is special ops going to deal with Russia and China. Hell, we were doing it before 9/11 while everybody else was sitting on their butts. We were in all these little third world countries fighting the surrogates, the Contras, the FMLN, the Sendero Luminoso. We were out there, all these places fighting Russian and Soviet surrogates and Chinese surrogates all over the place, because that's what you do in a Cold War. Everybody else was just running around training and doing big Army, big Navy, and big Air Force crap. And we were deployed all over the world. We were the most deployed entities, Patriots, Civil Affairs, and Special Ops, most deployed people prior to 9/11. Like, we were tired when 9/11 happened. Everybody else just got to get in the game. I tell people, hey, congratulations, welcome aboard. Welcome to the party, jackasses. We've been doing this for our entire lives. Everybody now says, oh, what are you going to do that there's not a CT fight? Well, to be honest with you, after this week, they've just perpetuated that. And so, but we're going to do the same thing. China and Russia are going to fight you through surrogates and through, unconventional methods. They're not going to, if you read their doctrine, most people don't even read their doctrine. They just, they think it's going to be like World War III. But if the Russian and Chinese doctrine clearly states that their intent is to avoid a major theater conflict. They don't want a big World War III. They don't want it to do that. They want nothing to eat, because it might end up getting to where someone has to use a nuke. And so they want to avoid that altogether. They'll have small altercations, what they call conflicts, but it's not going to be full scale, combat like war. It won't. They'll never let it get to that. And so, at least now, that's their current doctrine and stuff. But we all want to buy more Joint Strike Fighters and all this stuff, which are deterrents, right? The question is how much deterrence do we need? They actually proportion it. Like they do artillery and fires and everything else, because they know they can't just buy, until they feel like they're full. They have a certain amount and they know what they're doing. They kind of they're a little bit more programmatic in how they approach it. And we don't do that. We say how many ships we want in the Navy, and then we try to figure out where we're going to put them all over the map. And, they don't do that. They figure out how much they need in each location, and that's what they put there. And that's what they build to, and that's what they work toward. Allows them to have less, but more in certain locations and stuff. So, but the Cold War, aren't we in it now?
Some would say.
I think we're back, man. Looks the same to me. The nuke threat's not there. I don't think the nuke threat was that big when I was in the 80s, as everybody says it was. When you have nuclear assurance, everybody's like, no one's going to pull the trigger because it just would be ugly. We're all gone. So, everybody, they realized they couldn't fight us conventionally. They'd lose. And we had a nuke first policy, which meant that, we feel super threatened, we will use tactical nukes on you. We don't have those anymore. We just have the big ones, which is, so you can't use proportionality or scale or anything like that. And so they used a small nuke on us. The only thing we could do is use one of these massive ones, which is, not proportional. They have a full scale of them, whereas we don't. We've given up so many of the short and mid-range nukes that, kind of put ourselves at a disadvantage. Well, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does. Well, okay, so what is the difference? And I think this is interesting because I don't think a lot of people talk about this anymore. Like you said, they don't read doctrine. They don't, it's kind of an afterthought. But when you talk about that, what is the difference fighting it then and fighting it now? Because you said it's kind of the same thing. It looks the same thing to you. But I think you would agree with cyber warfare and all the other things that we're using. There's got to be some differences between them. So if you can go into what the difference is when you were fighting than now?
So in the old days, it was surrogates and stuff, and they were just basically doing insurgencies, right? You'd see them do things in Nicaragua. You had Cubans in Angola and South, in Africa, all over the place, Cuban trainers. Again, Soviet surrogates and stuff. You had them supporting, people like the Sendero Luminoso, the FMLN in El Salvador. So the rest, the Soviets were everywhere doing, what they were doing. The Chinese, of course, what they did in Korea, what they were doing in Vietnam. They did the same support in Malaysia, so they had their hands in a lot of things that were going on out there. In those days, it was more of kinetic and stuff. And so you fast forward to where we are today, they now call it, it depends on who you're talking to, but it's now referred to this year is irregular warfare. And irregular warfare is not just a military thing. It's a whole of government approach. It's soft, it's cyber, it's intel, it's information, it's economic, it's political, right? They mess with your elections. Oh, by the way, we do that too. The Americans have been doing that since, the 40s? I think we did the Greek elections in 38. We were heavily involved in making sure those went the right way, as we would say. We just don't like it when someone does it to us. But, that's just the reality. But this has been going on for a long, long time. It's never been we never thought it was as overt, where we could actually sense it and feel it, It's hard to prove, because it's all digital and stuff. So there's a lot of digital warfare out there that's happening, but it's all called irregular warfare. And, there's a lot of entities inside the U.S. government that have a role in it. Unfortunately, there's no one element inside the U.S. government that synchronizes and deconflicts all of the irregular warfare activities. Doesn't happen, doesn't happen in the Pentagon. It doesn't happen in the NSC. It just kind of doesn't happen. And that's the first reason we'll change as soon as we have a catalyst and there's a bunch of dead Americans. And then we'll create, like we did at 9/11, we'll have NORTHCOM, Homeland Security. We'll actually get our crap together. But the reality is it takes a bunch of dead Americans before we change. We talk about change all the time, but we just do not like it. It's not good. It's not fun.
Who would you say, of everyone that we're talking about right now with China, Iran, Afghanistan, the Taliban, ISIS, if you could take a pick, what do you think is the biggest threat right now?
Existential, it's China. They're committed to changing the dynamics and changing things on the ground. The problem you have is it's the war you want versus the war you have, right? And Al-Qaeda is going to reconstitute if they haven't already. I'd love to see the intelligence reports of estimates of when they predict ISIS and Al-Qaeda reconstitute. They'll be able to do it in Afghanistan because the Taliban are the Haqqani, which are just, a massive terrorist criminal organization. They'd sell their mothers for a quarter. And so, they don't care. They're going to, and they're not going to be able to basically rule the whole country. They just won't be able to and stuff. And so it's almost certain that those terrorist organizations are going to be able to flourish in Afghanistan. At least they're going to have a safe haven, if nothing else and stuff. And so I think you'll see more attacks on the U.S., I think there'll be a big move to get us out of Iraq. In October, Iraqi elections are coming. We'll get a new government will come in. They'll ask us to leave for the second or third time, whatever it is. We'll get asked to leave Syria as well. My hope is that we don't. I would declare the Kurdistan. I just declare Kurdistan to put a U.S. embassy in Erbil. I wouldn't give the Iranians Iraq. I just wouldn't do it. Some things are worth dying for, man. That should be one of them. A lot of people have a hard time with that, but if you keep backing up at some point in time, you're going to have to fight. If you give up too much good ground, you lessen your probability of success. you'll just end up paying for it more dearly up front in another way. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of changes, over the next year. I mean, we've lost a lot of trust as a nation. You can get it back, but it's hard. My old boss, Admiral Bill McRaven used to say, you can't surge trust. And that's a fact. If you don't know somebody and you're trying to build a trustful relationship in the middle of a combat zone, it's hard. It's hard. You want to have that relationship before you start doing combat operations and stuff. And so I think we've got to go and build trust. I don't think we're thinking about that now. I think we're thinking about pulling everything back into the motherland. And, I'm not a globalist, but, I think that's the dumbest crap I've ever heard. I just wouldn't, I wouldn't give them the freedom of action they actually want. I just don't think it's smart.
So 2 questions of that, because I'm glad that you said globalist and everything. Let's talk about the Taliban right now. You were saying that, they would sell their own mother and stuff. You would agree that organizations like that have become less of a terrorist organization, not saying that they don't do terrorist acts, but less of a terrorist organization, more of a criminal organization. And the reason I say that is because of the transfer of weapons all over, using the use of hawalas, all those different kinds of things that are going back and forth between the countries. They have become more criminal-minded than terrorist-minded. And if you disagree, by all means, please tell me.
I don't think it's a homogeneous thing. I think the Taliban are like anybody else. It depends on what faction, where they are. They're all tribal-based, right? So every tribe is totally different. And the tribal elders have a different take on everything. The Taliban were very anti-drug. Well, guess what? They're the biggest drug runners now you met, right? So, they become, what was the guy, AZA? He was the guy, the Pablo Escobar of Afghanistan. He's still running free, man. We can't touch him. That guy's a gajillionaire. He owns like 2/3 of Helmand province. Lives in Kabul, man. I saw his house. AZA, the average American's never heard of him. They go, well, who's the big drug lord? It's him. Every DEA guy knows him, and they have like dreams of killing that guy. He'd be like, DEA agent of the year if they could get that guy. But he moves more poppy and heroin. He's the biggest in the world, right? He's a gajillionaire. Just stupid amounts of money. I don't know how the Taliban are going to deal with that, but each sect is different and stuff. And so, but they do torture people. I guess they're flying around, dude hanging from a Black Hawk.
Yep.
I don't know if you call that just sadistic or terrorism. I don't. It depends on what your definition is and stuff.
I equate it to the cartels in Mexico.
You know that, right? So you'll find one dude who's Taliban, and 2 years later you catch him, he's Al Qaeda, and then 3 years later you catch him, he's ISIS. So you have to have a player's guide to sort this crap out.
Right. And when you talk about that, like the helicopter that is hanging someone from it, I equate that to what they do in Mexico in the cartels. I equate it to what they did in South America when Escobar was still around. It's a show of violence. It's a show of force to show you're either with us or against us. That's the best way that I can describe it. And so that's why I think that it has turned in, because another problem that comes with that, with it being a criminal organization, is, like you said, that guy's a gajillionaire. Well, now they have all this munitions on the ground. And even before that, if he has all this money to give to his cause, it makes for a difference. It makes for a sway, because they are able to afford things that they might not have been able to afford before.
Yeah. They've always received, like Al Qaeda's always received, lots of funding from the Persian Gulf. So, it's not like they don't have money. They're not, these complex attacks aren't, that expensive. They don't need a Black Hawk to pull them off.
Right.
They don't need all this other stuff. They use very common, simple stuff. It'll be interesting to see how they, who knows, man? They may try to go up there and relieve some of the Uyghurs, the Muslim population in China. It could happen, that they're always looking for their oppressed brothers. Well, you can look no further than the Xinjiang province of China, which borders Afghanistan, and just roll up in there and relieve some of your brothers, and give the Chinese a problem to deal with. But yeah, I mean, it could happen. I don't know. They could destabilize other countries in the regions. You don't know. I mean, it's a huge Muslim population. The question is who do they radicalize? And, then what do they do once they're radicalized? That's what's the reality. If they just sit around and they just want to live by Sharia law, that's great. But historically, that's not what happens. They want to impose that crap on other people. And then to do that, they carry it abroad, Right. They blow up stuff all over Europe. And, Europe used to burn, man. Last 10 or 15 years, it's not been too bad in Europe, but it's kind of calmed a bit, because they started rolling people up and using the terrorist acts, the Patriot Acts, those kind of different types of things that each one of the European countries enacted to deal with it. So, I mean, they got an issue, so we'll see. I mean, I don't think they're all going to sit in Afghanistan and be content. I don't buy that at all.
Oh, no, I completely agree with you on that. But when you talk about like destabilizing other nations, that in turn ends up being a bigger problem for us and for our allies, because we seem to have been the ones that try and stabilize it throughout history. And when you start to get that domino effect, do you agree that it kind of stretches us too thin, puts us on too many fronts?
Not if it's China. China has 180 million Uyghurs, man.
Right.
I mean, I couldn't think of anything better than giving them an internal problem. Remember, most of their tech, most of their stuff is focused on keeping their population controlled. It's their biggest fear. Their biggest fear isn't going to war with us. It's a population that raises up one day and they get the whole, Tiananmen Square thing all over again. That scares the heck out of them and stuff. I mean, give them an internal problem and let the Taliban bring it to them. Man, that would just be awesome. Same with Russia. Russia wants to control the Trans-Caucasus region, sees it as their backyard. They're massive Muslim nations. I think it's Turkmenistan, or is it Kazakhstan? Kazakhstan butts up right against the Xinjiang province, and a lot of the Uyghurs flee into there and stuff. And, and the Chinese will openly pursue them, I mean, the MSS, which is like their CIA, their FSB, the German version, they're pretty aggressive and stuff. So, they'll go get them. And those countries are pretty weak and stuff, so they'll just kind of.
So does that pit, at some point, does that pit China against Russia?
No, I think I mean, I wouldn't conflate the two. I think you're going to see, if you could have you had Salafi jihadists, radical folks out of the Taliban, the Haqqanis, that are actually trying to support the Uyghurs in China. I think the Russians would watch it burn just like we would watch it burn. We wouldn't put any water on it. Be like, yeah, wow. Sucks to be you. Same thing they did when we were in Afghanistan, right?
Right.
Watch us go through the same drama. So everybody gets their Vietnam at some point.
And before we were over there in Afghanistan, you had Russia over there for years. And so when you look at that, when you look at the history of, I mean, this goes back, and we've said it on here a bunch of times before, this goes back centuries. This kind of thinking, this kind of radicalism will never go away, no matter who's there. You agree with that?
It goes back thousands of years.
Say that again.
It goes back thousands of years.
Right.
It's pretty high right now, because you have a lot of young males who are basically not employable. They're not well educated. Not a lot of work for dummies. You know what I mean? Finding the same problem in the U.S. Every day you get machines that are becoming autonomous and able to do more and more things that humans used to be able to do. Then you have more and more human beings that are basically unproductive. And when you're in a third world country that doesn't have a lot of manufacturing, like, a lot of the Middle East places, you have a lot of these young men, in a male dominated society that are angry and pissed off at the world because, they don't have any money, they don't have any future, and they just get pissed, and so they join these militias and they want to take it out on the world. And, a lot of them want to get their jihad on and become martyrs, and it is what it is, right?
Right. So I want to come back to Afghanistan kind of at the end of our conversation, but I want to move on to something that you took part of, and I want to talk about Just Cause. And if we can talk about the difference just in sheer time frame of how fast and decisive and how quickly that it was processed through, with people giving up, the command giving up, there wasn't any way to split out. So if you can, I don't want to ask a lot of questions up front of it. Will you just kind of walk us through what was going on with you while all this was building, as it happened, and then as it ended?
So I lived in Panama. I lived at a place called Fort Gulick. The Panamese renamed it Fort Espinar on the Atlantic side. I was in 3rd Battalion, 7th Special Forces Group, and the battalion was right there at Fort Davis, which is about 5 or 6 miles down the road from Fort Espinar. Then not too far up the road from there was Fort Sherman, where the Jungle Training Center was, and that was the Atlantic, and then everybody else was on the Pacific side, right? But we had been there, we were deploying in and out of El Salvador. We had guys going to Colombia and Bolivia and Peru. I had just come out of Peru. I think we got back on the 10th of December, and my company commander, Major Kevin Higgins, alerted us, and, I didn't even know what the hell was going on. I'm like, what do you mean, man? We just kind of showed up in our shorts and stuff, we didn't know like what's going on. And you got to understand, prior to all this, we used to have what's called pot bangers. Panamanians were lazy, so they sent their maids out in the streets to bang pots as a protest and stuff. So they used to call them pot bangers. That would be like the big protest, and everybody would rattle their pots and stuff for a couple hours, and they'd all go inside and go back to doing what they were doing and stuff. And then we had the October coup that year, and that got a little sporty. But, we were really well prepared because they moved 7th Infantry Division Brigade into Panama. We had lots of JSOC assets there. We had an extra SF company from 7th Group. We had Alpha Company, 1st to the 7th. So we had 4 SF companies, which is a lot. That's a lot of combat power for, a special forces organization. We had helicopters. We had a lot of the lift, the AC-130s. We had a lot of stuff in theater already because we knew that this thing was going to go sideways. We just didn't know when. I remember they alerted the battalion. They started flying us over. I want to say it was the 17th or 18th. And then we got told, I went in, my first mission was to go with 3 other guys to a place called, I can't even remember it, but it was a bunch of mortar positions by one of these 4 of us. We were going to suppress them with 203s and then use AC-130s to just wipe them out. Nowadays, if you did that, post 9/11, you'd probably send 5 guys and it'd be over in an hour and a half. They'd come back, have a beer. It would be no big deal. But we had to maneuver to the place and stuff. And when I got to the other side, because I'd been an 11th Cav guy, Major Higgins came up to me and said, "Do you know how to set up an anti-armor ambush?" And I said, "Yeah, I do." Of course, we didn't have mines and rockets and a lot of the stuff that would have been really handy to shoot at armored vehicles. They had these Cadillac gauge armored cars with 20 millimeter cannons on them, which is, you don't want that shooting at you. That's not good. That would hurt. And so I was taken off the one mission literally right there and flipped over to this. And I took about half my team with me we had a block in position. Our mission was to go into the Pecora Bridge, and we were going to block it from the Battalion 2000 coming out of Cimarron, which is south of Tucumán Torrijos Airport. The Rangers were going to land first on Tucumán, jump as a clearing, airfield clearing team would hit it. And then the 82nd was going to jump. They didn't need to jump, but the reason they jumped, well, everybody will tell you they jumped so they could get their star. But the real reason is you didn't want to be landing all those damn airplanes. And I mean, it would have been it'd have just been a pain in the ass, right? So it's easier just to dump all those chuckleheads out of the airplane onto the tarmac and just, sort it out on the ground. Because when you start landing those big airplanes, it gets really dicey at night and people are shooting at you. It just gets really kind of weird. And you didn't want one of them catching fire in the middle of the runway and shutting the airfield down, right? So you didn't want to do that. We got told that night that the president had made the decision we're going. We're like, damn, so this is it. And we were at Albrook Air Force Base, which is in Panama City, right dead in the middle of it. And something happened that night outside of one of the gates. Gunfight started. You got to remember, most of my battalion had been in combat already multiple times. He'd seen a lot of combat, so it wasn't really, getting in a gunfight wasn't, didn't freak us out, whereas a lot of people hadn't been in one ever, since Vietnam was the last good one, right? Grenada. And so, So we were sitting in, these are nothing but aluminum buildings, man, hangars, bullet just right through it, like a buckshot through a beer can. And, rounds are just clicking through the building. And, we're sitting out there and they had 3 helicopters and the blades are turning. It's about an hour before we're supposed to leave. And it was just getting sporty as hell. And I'm looking at Major Higgins. I'm like, hey, man, we got to go. This is, because at some point down, one of these birds is going to catch fire, man, and somebody's going to be without a ride. Or one of us is going to get hit. Because literally just green tracers were going all over the damn place. And it just kept getting crazier and crazier. And finally they said, okay, you guys can roll. And we could, we were lifted and we just got the hell out of there. And as we were leaving, you could see the place look like, just green tracers were going off all over the place. Somebody kicked the party off early. So we had this real elaborate route that we were going to fly in, to do avoidance and stuff. So they didn't, they weren't be able to track us where we were coming in, because Battalion 2000 was like their big, heavy formation. Like if it got into the city, it could cause a lot of damage and stuff. And so once the firefight started, it was like, shit, we just got to go straight in on this place because, the game was up, right? Everybody knew everything was rolling. People were alerted. I remember and we came over the bridge and I looked down, I'm thinking, shit, that's the bridge. Like, we're already here. And you could see trucks lined up, the convoy lined up, getting ready to come on the bridge. And I'm thinking, shit, this is not good. We were supposed to land on the far side of the bridge. Everybody, 3 teams, we're going to run up and set up an anti-armor ambush and block them. I was going to take my team. We were going to run across the bridge and do the backside security and make sure nothing coming out of the city could come back out, right? And we were small, we were like 5 or 6 of us. Wasn't many of us, right, and stuff. And so I think Glenn Russo and a couple of the guys from one of the other teams brought over, like every machine gun they could get out of the arms room. It looked like every dude was carrying we had machine guns everywhere because, there just weren't many of us, right? So we need to make a lot of noise. And I remember we landed, we had to land on the other side of the river, the side that I was actually going to be on because the trucks were already on the other side. So that plan was over. We landed in this real tall kuna grass. I don't know if you've ever seen kuna grass, but it'll cut you like a razor, man. You just, you ever see pictures of guys in Vietnam, just their shirts and stuff are all just chopped up. Well, that's what it does to you. I think by the time we get to it, man, I was going to bleed to death. It felt like, we just cut up and we were carrying concertina. We had it put on cardboard. We made these cardboard sleds, and we're dragging this crap through the thing. And I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, man. We got up on the big berm and revetment there. And I remember Charlie Moritz and a bunch of the guys were just cranking laws, and AT4s at this truck. I mean, you know, and the headlights just stayed on, man. They were just pounding this thing, man. And I don't know, man, it's one of those old Army Deuce and a half from World War II, man. But the damn lights just stayed on, like pointing right at us. You know, we're just dumping rockets into it. And it stayed on for probably 3 hours until the battery ran out. I can't explain it. To this day, I can't explain it. So, but I was on the far side setting everything. I mean, we stayed there for till the next day. We killed a bunch of guys trying to come across. AC-130s, I think we emptied 2. The first time I'd ever seen them, you know, when they say they're Winchester, that means they're out of ammo. That's a bad thing. When the second one says, I'm Winchester, and you go, whoa, excuse me, what? And they were like, we're going to leave and go back. No, somebody got to stay here and tell us, because, you know, they have all the sensors, and they could see things, and they could see all the movement stuff. So one rolled back to go get more ammo at Howard Air Force Base. And then when they changed back up, but they basically provided us our security blanket that whole night. The next day, you know, we were getting guys surrendering. You know, people show up in underwear. You know, no joke. They just dumped their uniform, standing in their underwear in the middle of a field. You're like, come on. So we stayed out there until, I want to say it's probably 3 o'clock, maybe later. I don't know. And I was the one facing the city, and I knew that the 82nd Airborne was going to be coming out of the city. And I'm thinking, shit, man, this is the most dangerous thing, because they're just going to kill us, because they want to kill everything on Earth. And, you know, they just wanted to mow something down. You know, it was 80 deuce, you know, and I'm just like, this is not good. So I had my VS-17 panel, and I'm flashing it to them, and they had tanks up front, you know, the old Sheridan tanks. And they didn't kill us, thank God. We got out of there. We took all the prisoners. I'll never forget, I lost my hat. I had one of those patrol caps from right outside the gate of Fort Benning. And, you know, they're hard to get. They were expensive back then. You know, nowadays it's not that expensive. But back then I was poor. I was cap, you know, brand new captain. Didn't have clothing and sales anywhere. So I had like relaxed grooming standards at the time, because I just come from Peru. So I had a mullet going on. You know, the whole Crockett and Tubbs thing.
Yeah, there you go.
And so, yeah, but Big Dumb Army had showed up down there, and there's this captain running around with long hair and no hat, and it didn't go real well. You know, there was no clothing and sales store to buy one, because, you know, everything was closed because there was war going on. So we went back. We went back to Albrook,
right,
and we stayed there. And then we got told that we're going to go and do the operation in David. And so the Panamanian Defense Forces had 2 kind of armies. They had one in the Canal Zone, and then they had one in David, which is up on the Costa Rican border, up in Boquete in that area. And that's the second largest formation of Panamanian Defense Force folks. Colonel Del Cid, the number 2 guy under Noriega, commanded that. And I mean, the plan was pretty crazy. I think it was Charlie Cleveland came up, you know, now retired Lieutenant General Charlie Cleveland, and those guys came up with the idea to call them. And so we flew in broad daylight. We had a 53, 2 Air Force Pave Hawks that we did in-flight refueling off the coast of Panama, broad-ass daylight, which we'd never do this crap again. I mean, never. And we went to a place called Cherokee, and Colonel Higgins landed in one of the Pave Hawks. He was Major Higgins, and put a quarter in and called the quartel in David and said, "You want to surrender?" In Spanish, of course. And they said, "Sure." And we said, "Okay, great. We'll drive over." Sure. They go, "We'll drive over." Literally, that's like, yeah. I mean, we wasn't allowed to negotiate and stuff. And they said, no, don't drive, because all the bridges are mined and everything. And so, you know, that's not a smart thing. So fly over. So the 2 Pave Hawks went to the quartel in David, which is a big town, right? It's pretty big, you know, it's not small. And I took the 53. I have a picture of me in here sitting there. I have a bandana around my head because I didn't have a hat, you know. Well, I wasn't trying to look like Rambo.
You can't say you have it and not show it.
Oh, it's on this. The electric thing. It spins around.
Oh,
and
okay,
stuff.
okay.
But it's me sitting there, and I got the headset on. I got a rocket between my legs. An AT-4 rocket. I got my arm actually holding on it like an armrest and stuff. But we all went into the airport, and we were going to. I had 1 hour to make sure that they could land and put the Rangers down there. Otherwise, they were going to do an assault, and it wasn't going to go well. We had to get out of there. And I think I had the engineer officer for the Ranger Regiment. Yeah, and he was a major, if I remember correctly. And we busted ass. I mean, we found I shouldn't say this probably. We had a bucket loader on there, and I had several gentlemen that had mischievous childhoods who knew how to hotwire it quickly and get it going quickly. I mean, a couple NCOs like, I got this, And so they got it, and we filled in one hole. They tried to crater one little hole. We found a bunch of gravel. I mean, it was too easy. It was almost like wasn't as challenging but we had 1 hour to do it, which is not a lot of time. Right. There's a lot of unexploded ordnance they tried to blow up and stuff. And so I tried to, but the whole place was ringed by people. We were like heroes and they were the fences, the chain link fence, thousands, probably 30,000 people surrounded it, and they were cheering the Americans coming in to relieve them. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. And I had one helicopter, and I was trying to tell Major Higgins, I was like, hey, man, this is a freak show. This is a freak show. This is out of control. The Rangers landed, and then I had to get Rangers into the quartel downtown. I had no transportation, so we got these, the Panamanian Chiva buses, with the big murals on the sides, and they got the disco music and the music playing and the Jenga. It was crazy. So we threw Rangers in those. We threw them up on the luggage rack up top with machine guns, and we drove, the parts of the Ranger Battalion into the city to occupy stuff. And, and then we just started working with them, stolen vehicles. We had electric light company vehicles. I had a Mitsubishi dump. I'd never driven one, big, huge dump truck. I wanted it. I had me a big white one. That's what I would drive around in. I mean, it was massive, man. It was like a 5-ton dump. It was huge. That was my car. And so I could fill the back of that dump truck with a squad of Rangers, and we could go anywhere in Panama, man. But, they say, we need to go here. I spoke Spanish. I had, another Spanish speaker with me. We'd go there, we'd drop them, let them do what they do, and we'd get back in, we'd take off. So we had just a lot of good stuff. That to me is a mission. I told you earlier about Sergeant Major Kenny McMullen. Again, guy's a legend, Sante Raider. I think he's had at least three tours in MACV-SOG in Vietnam. And he'd done about everything you could do in SF, Thailand. Just everything. And he goes to retire. I think the Army Times did a front page article on him. I think they did 2 of them because he had so much crap he'd done. And they asked him what the most impressive mission he saw in his military career. And he said, David. Nobody was expecting that, right? They expect him to say, the Sante raid. He goes, because I watched a handful of special ops dudes, get in a couple helicopters, fly all the way up the Panamanian coast, which is a long way, by the way, in a helicopter, and take the surrender of 2,500 Panamanian Defense Force, well-armed Panamanian Defense Force folks, and there was never a shot fired. And that's a great vignette on how special ops works and stuff. We were able to take that place without any loss of life. We were able to, we found a lot of bad people. We had, there was some crazy, I could tell you a guy who was a boxer in Panama who'd been kicked out, went to Costa Rica and formed his own militia. And he seized the checkpoints up there. And myself, Colonel Higgins, and one of the company warrants went up there, drove up there to meet with these dudes. Like, we didn't know them, so we didn't know what the hell we were getting into. It could have been last trip we ever make. But these guys were professional, man. They all had blue jeans on. They all had the same color blue T-shirts. They had Motorola walkie-talkies. Everybody was kitted the same way. So this guy was I think he was like a welterweight contender at one time in the world. But he, he's pissed off. He's a Panamanian. He got run out of his own country. But He took over. He probably had like 100 dudes, his own little militia, and they seized the checkpoint, arrested a lieutenant who had murdered, I think it was an American, and they put him in a U.S. postal bag. His head one, his body torn. Yeah, that dude, him, fat dude too. We threw him in the back of the van, the back of the carrier. He was a big old tub of lard. It wasn't going to go well for him. He was going to end up at like Cueva Island, which is like, Devil's Island. It's not good, man. It's not a place you want to hang out. You don't want to spend your life in that place. But, just things like that happened and stuff, and I'm just really proud of, the guys that, that what they accomplished and stuff. Cause they were, they could have gone in there and shot the place up and killed a lot of people and stuff like this, but we didn't do that. So I don't know if that answers the just cause thing or not.
No. That's way more than I even thought we were going to get. That it tells a different side of it. Of course, the military operations, major military operations, took about 5 days. Noriega surrendered.
It was over in 24 hours.
Yeah, Noriega surrendered.
That bullshit.
Yeah,
I think it was over within 24 hours. It was over.
No kidding.
There was still fighting and there was still uncertainty because you couldn't figure out who's who in the zoo, right?
Right.
I had a classmate who ended up being the head of the Defense Force of Panama. His name is Gustavo Perez. Graduated from the Citadel with me. But he was the XO of the Special Forces Company in Condor Island on the Pacific side. And he'd gone to school in America. His father had gone to school, fluent English and stuff. And his group of special ops dudes, Panamanian special ops dudes, were a lot of the problems. They were the guys shooting rockets at those big glass buildings and stuff. And, just crazy stuff. And they kept us spinning, right? Kept us running around trying to find these chuckleheads. But, again, he'd been well trained. We trained him. The Israelis trained him. Hell, he trained with Gaddafi's people. And so, the guy had a lot of good training. And so they gave us headaches. They took him prisoner and they took him over to Empire Range on the Pacific side. They had him handcuffed, right? And they were getting ready to fly him somewhere in the helicopter. And he takes his head and he slams it into the side of the helicopter and splits his head and starts to bleed. And there's TV cameras and he turns around, he spins around into the camera in perfect English and he screams, "The Americans are torturing me. Look what they're doing to me." Just stuff like that. Well, you're some public affairs dude, man. You just lost your day. Now you got to walk that back, right? You're going to be there all day trying to explain to people what happened. And people are like, "What? No, come on, they're torturing people." And so, just they were, they were doing a real good job of screwing with us and stuff. And ultimately it was fine. They kicked them free. Everybody wanted to shake hands. So it wasn't bad.
I'm really glad that you brought up a public affairs because I want to go into this because this was one of the most interesting things I thought about your career. So 1992, you're selected to become the Latin American Foreign Area Officer. You got a master's degree in Latin American Studies from San Diego University, and you served
San Diego State. San Diego University is right across Mission Bay, but it's owned by the Catholic Diocese, so it's a little
I'm
bit
sorry.
different.
I went to Oklahoma State. It's the same way with Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. I'm so sorry. I profusely apologize to you. So you're subsequently served at the U.S. Embassy. I really want to know at this time, this is 1992. So I'm just going to give a couple of the highlights around that. 89, end of the Cold War diminishes Latin America's significance. Just Cause happens in 89. 91 is the collapse of the Soviet Union, creates problems in Cuba. 92, NAFTA. 93, U.S., Mexico, and Canada form the North American Free Trade Agreement. All these things are going on, and you're over there. So being a Latin American Foreign Area Officer so soon after the cocaine crisis, Operation Just Cause, all the events of the world that are unfolding, did it make your job tougher, or did you have to work a lot smarter?
So in Bolivia, I won't do this. So Kevin Higgins, if you're listening, I apologize up front. So what people have to understand is what was going on in Latin America. So we killed Pablo in 88. And we were breaking up the Medellin cartel, but then the Cali cartel started taking over. What people don't realize is that most of the cocaine was produced in 70% of it was in Peru, and about 30% of it came out of Bolivia, out of Chimere and the Chapari Valley. So, and everything else came out of the Alta Huallaga and the Rio Ini area in Peru. And what they would do is they would put it into paste. They would fly it all in planes to Colombia. They would process it into cocaine as we know it. And then they would put it on the routes into the U.S. In those days, the routes went to the cocaine cowboys, and it went through into the Caribbean, right? It wasn't going up through Mexico like it is now. It would go into the Caribbean, and then they would, Crockett and Tubbs and all the boys would, be chasing it from there. What happened is that Peru and Bolivia and everybody started shooting down the planes flying out, right? They were doing like 100 a week. Yeah, people don't know that. They were smoking planes, right? And so in Peru and Bolivia, they could just drop them as is. In Colombia, the rules were different, and they didn't shoot down the planes. I think the reason they didn't was because at that point in time, they were over a lot of villages, following roads. And if they dropped the planes, probably hitting. But in Colombia, they could destroy them on the airfield stuff. And so what happens is that the Colombians said, screw it, they're going to start growing their own coke. And they started putting more coke fields into Colombia. And that's when they started using the ELN and the FARC. And they were using all these remote places. They were not just processing coke anymore, but they were growing coke because they didn't want to have to fly it and stuff and have to take off. So this was a big transition that was going on and stuff. So I was in the embassy. I mean, in those days, Bolivian embassy was massive. It had one of the largest AID programs. Well, most people don't know that there's a Peace Corps training center there. I think it's still there. It's one of the biggest there is. So there's just it's a big operation in La Paz. La Paz is a dump if you've ever been there. It's like one of the poorest countries south of the Rio Grande. It's like my wife and I want to go back there because we want to see where we lived and just, see how much it's changed. But it's on my bucket list. But, it was great. I had a great time there. I learned a lot. I worked, half the guys were with the agency, the other half were with DEA, and they were phenomenal, man. They were just a lot of fun. We did great operations, complete autonomy. I was a very senior SF captain at the time. Back in those days, you were a captain for like 100 years because, the promotions were slow. I think I sat on the majors list for 2 years after it came out. They tell you you're going to get promoted, and 2 years later, you actually get promoted.
So how many years do you have in right now?
When I got out? At that time?
Yeah, at that time, how many years you got in?
I came out 84. 9.5, 10.
Okay.
9.5. Yeah, 10. No, 10 by the time by 1994, it was 10 years.
Okay.
Yep. And so good times. I enjoyed being in the mill group. I did not want to go back to some BS staff job in the United States. I wanted to stay down. I wanted to stay deployed. I wanted to stay overseas. Spent most of my career overseas. That's where I want to do it. I always, I'm an American. I could always go home, but that's where the farther away you are from the flagpole, the more autonomy you have. The more autonomy you have, the greater the ability to grow and do stuff. You're not micromanaged as much, and you can just do a lot of cool stuff. So I was in a forward deployed battalion in Panama. Lieutenant Colonel Roy Trumbull was our battalion commander, one of the greatest leaders I've ever worked for in my life. It's funny. He told me when I came in, and when I got selected as a FAO, he goes, "You piece of shit. I cannot believe you're doing this. I said, "Sir," back in those days, you could do both, right? SF. And then I was like, "Sir, I want to stay in Latin America. I can go back to the land of big PX anytime. My wife and I, we like it. We want to stay down here. This is what we dig it, right? This is us. We're cool." And he ended up being a foreign area officer and being the mill group commander in Peru. And I went and saw him in Peru, and he goes, "Shut up. Don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it." He's a colonel then. But I mean, I love him. He commanded School of the Americas. I mean, he's just one of the greatest class acts, you know, I've ever been around. You know, I mean, I think I can't say enough great things about Roy Trumbull. He just was a phenomenal leader, you know, and I was just blessed to serve under that man. He still lives in Columbus, Georgia, but he's just one hell of a human being.
With all this forward deployable, I mean, you talked about it in Germany. You're in Panama on a forward deployable. You're almost completely autonomous, working for the embassy. All these different things. You have to have a strong family backing you up. With everything that you're doing, you've got to have like a strong wife and everything backing you up.
Yeah, my wife's a saint. That was the first duty assignment we had, was in Paz, Bolivia. And she was an Air Force brat. Out of half her family's from South Carolina, the other half's from Kansas. But she loved it. She ended up getting a job working for Dan Johnson, who was a retired Air Force lieutenant colonel, was the admin officer, the number 3 guy in the embassy. Phenomenal human being. Unbelievable. You could hit that man with a brick and you would never ruffle his feathers. He would never get flustered. I mean, never. We had President or Vice President Gore come and visit. We had all these dignitaries come. And Dan Johnson was as cool as the other side of the pillow. He never freaked. He never got everybody spun up. Everybody would get all excited and he would just chill everybody out. I mean, and so she worked with him. She got her TS clearance while we were there because, you know, he couldn't work for the man without having a top secret clearance. So my wife and I both had top secret clearances. And we loved it. It was a great time, man. She saw every major cable, so I knew everything that was going on between the ambassador. You know, it's a fishbowl as it is, but I got to see all the real deal. You know, like this is what's really going on. And then I did all the work for the ops side of the house. So, but it was a lot of fun, man. I mean, we had a huge operation there. I think we had 21 UH-1 helicopters. We had 4 C-130s. We had a couple squadrons of boat guys and then we had the UMAPAR, which are a couple battalions of counter-narcotics guys. We had bases all over the place. We had training. I mean, it was great. DEA had, strike elements. We had just close reconnaissance. It was a lot. I mean, I was the ops officer. It was a blast, man. I won't lie to you, man. It's like I had more toys and stuff than I had ever dreamed of, man. You could do a lot of cool ops.
Well, with that, I want to talk about the extremist force that you were a commander of, and it focused on anti-terrorism, correct?
Yeah.
Now, recently they have, and about as close as I could get in information was the 2020, where they were getting rid of these teams.
Yeah, they did.
First, I want you to talk about them, but then I want to talk about when they got rid of them. And they're talking to these guys, a CRF operator, and he says the CRF hasn't been gainfully employed since the end of 2011. And other than that, the National Mission Force Joint Special Operations Command can get there just as fast. That's why all the other ones are on the chopping block. So I want to talk about what you did and why they got rid of them, because I would think now more than ever they would need those small units to move all around the globe quickly.
Yeah, the problem with the whole thing was missions are tied to resources and stuff. And so the unit that I had was Charlie 110, which was derived out of Berlin, right? It came from a unit in Berlin that was a covered unit, and they moved all that shit out of Berlin, and they said, you're going to go to Stuttgart. And you're going to fall in there, and we're going to reconstitute this capability in Stuttgart under the 1st Battalion folks, instead of having it in a detachment in Berlin. Those guys were, there's a mission there for the whole counterterrorism piece. It's an in extremis, and it's basically to hold the fort until the JSOC components can arrive. That's basically what it was. But it got used for so much more. Right. So to say it wasn't gainfully employed is bullshit. I mean, if you look at what happens in Iraq, they took it to Iraq because they needed it. JSOC needed that capability. Why? Because you're doing a lot of the over horizon stuff. During Brindisi in Bosnia, we kept half the company and 2 SEAL platoons in Brindisi, Italy, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we did that for 3 or 4 years. A fair portion of the company was deployed to Turkey when we had the Incirlik mission, because we had a thing called the Zaku House, and the Zaku House was in Kurdistan, and it was 20 some guys in a place literally in the middle of Iraq, and they would fly from Incirlik into Zaku House and resupply those guys, and they were a quick reaction force and for all those other things. Did tons of operations down in Africa. In those days we mainly focused on Africa. The real deal is it was created in the 80s when you had terrorism, you had the Baader-Meinhof, the Red Brigade, all this crap, right? And people kind of went away from the whole barricade situation. You could submit the same thing that the National Force didn't do shit either. What we built those folks for at that time, they weren't really using them. But those skills that they have are very unique, and they can be used in tons of other things. And so that's the reality of it. Whether they needed it or not, I've been out for 7 years, so it's kind of hard for me to have an opinion on whether or not they're needed or not. I'm not in a position to say. I know with Afghanistan, now that they're going to be doing over the horizon stuff, there'll be a point in time, if they're doing it for real and they're pre-positioning assets in theater that can react, shorter than, the flight from the U.S., and they've got the capabilities that they need over there, then those guys are going to get tired real quick. You're going to keep a lot of combat power tied up.
I just want to cut you off for a second. For people that are listening, can you explain over the horizon missions?
Yeah. They're hard. It's because you don't have any basing rights and stuff. And so you look at things like Just Cause, we were all in Panama. It's kind of easy, right? We had multiple places. You had forward support bases. You could build up your stuff. You had everything you needed when you needed it and stuff. If you look at Bosnia, for example, we couldn't do that, right? So, when we went into Bosnia, we were replacing the UN forces. Not many people remember that, right? It was the UNPROFOR, and they were a disaster. Remember, people were up there, living in their foxholes. It was just unsanitary. It was like World War I crap, right? And we took all the U.S. Special Operations. We went in there and we partnered with all the units, and when NATO came in to relieve the UN, we were the ones that brought the conventional forces up to do the relief in place. It was the special ops guys. It was a mess, man. It was just like, we could be here all night talking about that. The UN is just, back in those days, you had, Moroccan units without any cold weather gear on a frozen mountain, just all huddled around a fire. You could just walk up and shoot every one of them. They wouldn't even notice. They were freezing to death. Half of them were starving, didn't have water, frozen. They just weren't doing basic sanitary stuff, just crapping all over the place, just completely just lack of discipline in a military organization. They just didn't have it. They didn't have the professionalism to do it. They were just trying to survive. But we kept packages and stuff to do certain types of missions. You didn't want to put them in theater because you got to guard them. Just a lot. You can also get airfield watchers and things like that. And so sometimes your proximity can hurt you and stuff. But over the horizon missions, can you do them? Yeah. Desert One was an over the horizon mission. How'd that work out? Not too well. So, you're asking, if you have to have vertical lift capability, you have the CV-22 now that you didn't have before. The problem with the CV-22 is if you're flying in places like Afghanistan and you get up in the Hindu Kush, it doesn't have the horsepower. The engines aren't strong enough, so it can't carry a lot, a big load. It's small. The 47s are the only thing that you can use that we have in the inventory. The Marines have the 53s, and those are pretty good, but they're not special ops. So, you could end up like we did at Desert One. You have, non-special ops pilots trying to do a special ops mission, and it can end up badly. So you try to, not to do that. But if you have to have vertical lift, then, you've got to fly long, long distances. You got to do multiple tankers. docks on those things, in-flight refueling. You've got to have all kinds of capability, posture to do those things. When we were in Iraq and Afghanistan, we had forward support bases in and out of the country that allowed us to do phenomenal things and stuff. And when you just start getting involved in the, over the horizon, I just think it's a huge stretch. The risks go up through the roof, I mean, like I was talking to somebody tonight, Rick Lamb, Sergeant Major Rick Lamb works with me. He's a veteran of Mogadishu, got shot in the head, still got a bullet in his head from Mogadishu. And I asked him tonight, I said, hey, could you imagine doing Mogadishu if we had to fly out of Kenya? And he goes, no, would have been a failure. They were flying out of the airfield in Moog down the beach to the thing. Some of the assets were in Kenya, some of the big airframes were in Kenya, but the strike force package was at the airfield and stuff. And had to commute to work, the farther the commute, the worse it gets, the more danger, the more risk goes up. The cost is phenomenal. That's one of the things we're doing right now as the foundation is we're arguing, we are advocating to Congress that they consider taking the $3 billion that was earmarked for the Afghan forces and put that aside for the special ops and the intelligence forces and the Air Force and the Navy, who are all going to have to provide support packages to whatever the hell it is we're doing. And that's not a small number, man. It's a big, expensive number. It's 3 to make 1. So, whatever packages you have sitting on the ground, there's 2 other complete packages just like that back at home station. One is resting and the other one's training, and it's a grind, man. It will wear equipment and people out.
Well, and I guess we can kind of finish up because I want to get into the foundation and everything. But before we do, let's kind of wrap this up on Afghanistan, because I think it's a good point. So a lot of people are saying that the way we left, there was a lot better ways. I think you would agree with that. There's a lot better ways that we could have done it. I want to get first just your thoughts on it, how it ended up after 20 years, what you think maybe we could have done better, what we did good, and then, what it looks like for the future.
Yeah. So I look at the facts, right? Afghanistan was taken down with about 200 special ops guys and air power. And then we made a decision, and we were partnered with the Afghan forces, right? And then we made a decision to bring in the conventional force, the 18th Airborne Corps, Task Force 180. Why? As soon as we did that, we made the fight our fight. It then became a holding war for 1003 Victor, the invasion of Iraq, right? It was the forgotten war, it was a joke. In 2010, we shifted out of Balad, Iraq, into Bagram because we were closing down Iraq, right? Because the Iranians were telling the Iraqis to get us out of there, and we were allowing it, and they were using the status of forces agreement, saying we won't sign it if you don't do that. We could have just said, screw you, we're not doing it, and you're not touching us. We could have been a little bit more heavy-handed because we knew the Iranians were behind it, but we didn't do that. Both in Iraq and Afghanistan, we spent billions of dollars, mega billions of dollars, creating conventional forces that both literally evaporated within 5 days. Both. Whatever model we were following should be crushed into fine powder and never used again, because that was a horrible model. If you look at Iraq, the Counterterrorism Service, CTS, which is all their special ops, police, and military units, they're the ones that saved that country. When we all decided to go back in, it was those guys, the Golden Division, all those people. They attrited some of those Iraqi special ops battalions down to 30% of their people. They were using them as conventional forces because the conventional forces, which we, the taxpayers of America, spent tons of money on, just basically cut and run. They were never in the fight, I'll never forget the ISIS flag on the back of an M1 tank driving around. I'm thinking, Jesus Christ. One, why did we give them an M1 tank? They can't even clean a damn machine gun, but we go give them an M1 tank, which is one of the hardest things on earth to maintain besides a helicopter. Just stupid crap like that. Just ignorant stuff. Then you look at Afghanistan, the same thing. It was a tribal organization. We were going to create these canned acts, and we were going to use all this. Everybody was studying insurgencies. I just asked you, where are all the people that commanded ISAF and commanded CINTCOM today? Because they made thousands of dollars on book deals and speaking engagements. Are they accountable? Because they were architects of this disaster. Are any of them accountable? I mean, I'm just asking. If this was a business or an NFL franchise, we'd be firing people's asses right now.
I think that's the problem with a lot of people are having right now. And then you have the other day where the Marine Lieutenant Colonel comes out, asks for who's responsible and wants people to be held accountable, and they pretty much shit-can him. He's not gone, but they pretty much shit-can him out of the job.
He resigned. He's done. He'll be out in 90 days.
And so, 17 years and gone.
It was a conscious decision,
It was.
He's a gutsy guy, man. I got to tell you, I would like to think I would be that strong if I was there, but he was passionate about it, we'll see. I don't know if ever in his life he'll regret it or not. I don't know. But he's no dummy. I just think that there's no accountability for any of these failures.
So who do we hold accountable?
Well, everything's a function of leadership.
Okay.
So you just look. You can break out the pie chart and figure out everybody that helped architect that policy. A lot of them are great people that I know personally. I don't care, though. If you're in charge, you're in charge. And, they were all in charge. And over 20 years, we made a crappy product. And they're accountable. Even if they only had 2 years or 3 years to touch the product, it doesn't matter. They did it. And we should hold them accountable.
So how do we begin to do that then? How do we hold them accountable when no one is stepping forward and saying, part of this shit pie that we're eating is my fault?
Yeah, that tells you a lot about these people. Even the formers. Nothing personal, but these guys got to step up. David Petraeus of the world, he was a CINTCOM and ISAF commander twice. Come on, man. You have a huge hand in what happened here. You're a huge architect in what happened. You could sit there and tell me, oh, it was this and that. I don't give a crap, man. You drove the boat. You obviously didn't drive it in the right direction, because there's not been any major rudder changes in that place in 20 years. I remember sitting there in 2010 thinking, this is a shit show. And so it's again, though, you just do what you can at your level and stuff. At the end of the Vietnam War, the Army had the blue ribbon panel. What most people don't know is prior to 9/11, the Army had a second blue ribbon panel going on at Fort Leavenworth, and I was a part of it. I was watching it. I was on the third floor of Eisenhower Hall, and because the Army was hemorrhaging, people were disillusioned with their leadership. They wrote so many things. Lieutenant General Steele was the commander of Fort Leavenworth at the time, and they would go around and poll. They had 3 different groups. One was looking at NCOs, warrant officers, and officers. And they were naming names. It was brutal, man. It was brutal. The contempt and hatred they had for the senior leaders, mainly the flag officers in the military, because it was micromanagement. Everything. And then, of course, 9/11 happened. The towers came down. We went to war, and everybody forgot about it. I'm telling you right now, I'll bet you a month's pay that all the things that were an issue then will come back and be the same thing. Same thing post-Vietnam. They had the same thing. They had a big blue ribbon panel and basically exposed all the ugliness. I don't think any of these field marshals, but, people like Westmoreland, look at the Pentagon Papers, for Christ's sakes, with Ehrlichman. Come on, man. These guys exposed military corruption, in my opinion. These guys were complicit, falsely reporting, doing all this crap, just not, in my opinion, not ethical. I saw nobody resign over Afghanistan. Nobody, I think the last person that resigned was John Singlaub when he was the 8th Army commander in Korea, and President Jimmy Carter said he was going to pull everybody out of Korea. And General Singlaub resigned, the OSS guy in Europe and in Asia during the Korean conflict. They made him the CIA. He was a general, a colonel. They made him the CIA station chief in Seoul because they had just formed the CIA. They didn't have their shit together. But he was, I'm pretty sure Singlaub was a lieutenant general, and he resigned. And he didn't go on TV, and he didn't talk trash about Carter and say he's a loser or anything like that. Not that I remember. That was my junior year in high school. But he resigned and just said, I'm out. And that brought enough attention to the problem where Carter didn't pull U.S. forces out of Korea. I didn't see any of that. Did you?
No. But okay, so let's
didn't see. Even a lot of people had issues with President Trump, and they didn't do it.
So let me give you a scenario. So we start holding people accountable. One, how do we hold them accountable? And then when we do hold them accountable, what do we do with them?
Fire them. Look at General Marshall. He was like the chairman during World War II. That guy fired more generals. Look at Secretary Gates. He fired 9. They were either service secretaries or 4-star generals. I want to say he fired 2 service secretaries and 7 4. I mean, he fired tons of them, man.
But
didn't even blink, man. But when is the last time someone's been fired for incompetence?
But even if we fire them, they just walk away with their retirement. They just go away. I mean, they write a book. They become speeches, a talking head on Fox.
Yeah, you can do criminal stuff. You can give secrets to people and go teach at Columbia. I mean, you can get away with a lot if you're, the issue is I'm more concerned about changing the culture than being punitive. It sends a signal to the force. I'm more concerned about the culture of the force. Send a signal saying, hey, the part of your leadership is having the moral courage to do the hard right. Everything is not worth resigning over either. Like, I know a lot of young people say, you should resign. Like, well, okay, no, not for that. For Afghanistan, that's a resign thing.
Okay. So let me ask you, bringing it back to you, what was it that finally told you in your head, it's time to go?
From the I was MRD'd, man. I mean, I did as long as they would let me. I worked for Admiral Bill McRaven. He's my mentor and my friend. I agreed to do 3 years with him in Tampa. I used to make jokes. I was going to get off the plane. I just done 5 years in Belgium and 3 in Germany before that, in multinational headquarters. And doing multinational stuff, it ages you in dog years. I mean, it just wears you out,
right?
Just crushes your soul. Because it's hard, man. It's just really, really, really hard. I mean, it's not easy. The Americans hate it because we just like to do our thing. And often you can't just do your thing. You got to do it with your partners, and it sucks. It's painful. It's better in the end, but you got to do it. You just have to do it. And so
how's the stress level?
Pretty high. I was a chief. It's really high. Chief of staff for 5 years, man. Why I'm not an alcoholic, I have no idea. I probably am. So, but I love the people. I loved everything, but it is, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of stress, right? And I joked with Adam McRaven, I told him, I said, I'm getting off the plane in Tampa. I'm going to have in-processing paperwork in one hand and retirement paperwork in the other, and don't ask me to do a lot. Well, of course, he says, hey, I want to do this special thing. I want you to be a part of it. And like a jackass, I said, okay, because I can't really turn him down. I've never turned him down on anything. All I asked him to do is it can't be pedestrian. It's got to be something that's, worthy. And he doesn't, if you've never met the man, he doesn't, he's not playing for a tie. Let's just put it like that. And so, we were going to change the way special ops operated and we got a lot of good things done in 3 years. And so I MRD'd and mandatory retirement date, 2014, and I left.
When you leave, we talk about this foundation that you made, Global SOF Foundation. Now, looking through your numbers, holy shit, Stu, there's a lot of stuff going on here. Like, I was looking through your numbers. You have 2,400 plus individual members, and 50% of those are active duty.
32. We're over 32 now. Yeah, about 58% are active duty. I think it's probably getting closer into the 60s. They ebb and flow, you know.
So I have 85 corporate partners. How many are you saying now?
104.
Gee, 60 nations. What are we up to, 90?
No, 60. I think it's 60, 61, somewhere in there.
Okay.
You know, somewhere it's hovered. You know, I mean, there's not that many. A lot of the countries just don't have special ops. You know, Luxembourg's not going to have. We may have somebody in there from Luxembourg. I don't know. I have to go look. But
well, let me talk about just what it says. The Global SOF Foundation is a nonprofit organization. It's forging this good guy network among the world's special operations forces. It brings together military, government, industry, and intellectual leaders from around the world for the purpose of advancing the capabilities and efficacy of SOF. I want you to break it down, though, what you guys really do, because there's a lot more to that. I want to talk about, are you still with Spirit of America? Because that was the last that I read that you were.
I'm advisory council guy.
Okay.
There, so.
I
love what they're doing. I think they're phenomenal. I mean, if I had $1 billion, I'd give them $1 billion. They're just, you know, they're doing God's work. Basically, it's a good guy NGO, you know.
You're right.
Supports good guy people and stuff. So they've done, I mean, they have some of the most phenomenal vignettes and stuff. And I just think the world of them. They're just, you know, they're great people doing great things. And most people never know anything about them, and it's kind of sad because they're not doing it. If I can
go their numbers real quick, just because you're talking about them so highly, 1,433 projects going on in 90 countries, 16.7 thousand donors, 38 million total in donations. I mean, that's unbelievable. And for you to be a part of it along with your organization. Now, I want you to break down your organization because I said a mouthful of it. I want you to kind of break it down, though, and say what you guys actually do.
Kind of give you a little bit of history first. So
okay.
I didn't even know what a 501c3 was.
Okay.
I had to go look it up. In 2013, while I was on active duty, the U.S. Geospatial Intelligence Foundation was hosting an event called GeoInt in Tampa, Florida. And a guy by the name of Keith Mosbach, who's the president and CEO at the time, shows up at my office and says, "Hey, we met with Adam McCraven. He says you're supposed to help us." I'm like, "Great. Who are you? What am I supposed to help you with?" We talked a little bit about the event they were going to host in Tampa. I looked at the agenda. They weren't getting any support from SOCOM or CINC. And I just said, "Hey, how much freedom do I have to change stuff?" And they said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I don't like the agenda. I think it's a bunch of nerds talking to nerds. And what I think we need to do is I think your business partners would be more excited to have operational people come in and talk about how they use geospatial capabilities in their organizations, and not just what they're supposed to do, but how they actually use them, and some of the, you know, how do they cheat and do things with it." And they go, "Yeah, that's great." And I said, "And we need to bring in international, like everybody, not just, you know, a bunch of gringos here and there." So we brought in General Votel, was the JSOC commander at the time. Adam McCraven spoke. I brought in international panels. We got we operationalized their agenda. So industry partners could actually hear what the units and the commands were doing with their stuff. Throughout the entire process, Keith Mosbach kept asking me why special operations never had a professional association. You know, I was working 15 hours a day, 6 days a week. I wasn't looking for a hobby. I hadn't really thought about it. I was getting close. I was about 9 months out from retirement, from my mandatory retirement date. A lot of big industry folks were talking to me with some pretty good deals. You know, I'd never seen an offer sheet. I had one. Some of the numbers that they were mumbling were pretty high. And they were good companies and everything, but it just, you know, I wanted to keep serving. And so Keith Mosbach one day asked me, "Why don't you form a nonprofit for special ops. Why don't you get off your ass and do this? And I was like, dude, I have no idea what I'm doing. He goes, I'll help you. I'll give you my staff. We will help you do this. And they did. He gave me his bylaws. I looked at a couple of the bylaws. I did word replace. My COO is Megan Keeler-Pettigrew. And so my COO is Megan Keeler-Pettigrew. It's like Jerry Maguire. One day we just grabbed our goldfish and we left, man. We took off. And I said, hey, what do you think about this? And she says, I think it's awesome. Dr. Keenan Yoho is our vice president. And he's like, yeah. I said, y'all want to do this? And they said, yeah, let's do it. And again, we didn't know what the hell we were doing, man. I won't lie to you. But we're blessed. We have some partners and stuff. We have founding partners that wrote $100,000 checks the first year, in the year of sequestration. I had a crappy Kinko's copy brochure, and I had no past performance, man. And so for these companies that are our corporate partner, our founding partners, to write a check like that in the year of sequestration with no past performance, that's an emotional decision and not a business decision.
But can I stop you there for a minute? I mean, with no past performance, I mean, your resume kind of speaks for itself.
It was more the idea than me, I mean, yeah, I guess. But the reality is everybody that saw it, the first time Adam McCraven saw it, looked at me and said, damn, this looks pretty good. It's like one of the smarter things you've ever come up with, And I didn't want to tell him, hey, man, I didn't really know anything about it. Keith Mosbach was the one saying, you ought to get off your butt and do something. So it kind of just arrived at this, and a group of us just slowly percolated this thing up. And we grew as Megan and I for first 3.5 years, just two of us. And we recruited, I want to say, over 50-some partners. And by ourselves, we did everything. It was long hours. I mean, we worked hard. We had a lot of great volunteers. So the other thing is about this community is, this is one of the most giving communities. If you could have seen them over the last 7 days, the Special Ops community brought more people out of Afghanistan than you could ever dream of. There are all these nonprofits. These people have done. I've never been more proud of them in my life. Nobody asked for anything. Everybody's given way together. I think when somebody goes back and does the forensics on what this community accomplished by getting people out of Afghanistan, 60 Minutes can make mini series out of it. Netflix, I'm not joking, Netflix will make movies. There's going to be tons of screenplays come out of this. Some of the greatest things you'll ever see came out of this thing. So as horrible as it is, the human spirit was awesome, and I'm really proud of my community for everything it did. But, you fast forward to where the foundation is now, man. We're in our 8th year. In 2020, we were designated by the Department of Defense as one of the national military associations. So there's like 11 of us total now. So we're like, up there, and so it's good. We're a little bit different than everybody because we are global. So we have a lot of global partners out there and a lot of global activities and stuff that we do. But we're just trying to form and maintain a good guy network. The Special Ops community is always the first in, it's generally the last out of every conflict in the world. That's what they're built for. So, everybody feels sorry for them, don't feel sorry for them. That's what they want. That's what they signed up to do. So don't act like you're, doing them wrong. That's what they do. They want that. That's why they left the conventional force. They wanted to do more. They wanted greater risk. They wanted greater responsibility for those types of things. We just convene the community with events and we advocate for it. Like I said, we just sent a letter to Congress. I don't know if it'll do any good or not, but we just need, we try to educate them so they think about things for the community. We try to support SOCOM and all the other commands. I've worked with the Ukrainians, multiple countries in Europe. I'm starting to work with countries in Asia on help forming Joint Special Operations Headquarters, trying to make them more compatible. So when they fall in a battle zone, like if you could have seen the Kabul airport, it looked like the Special Ops Olympics, man. Everybody was there, but you got to understand now. So when we started the NATO SOF headquarters with Adam McCraven, they didn't have all that capability and compatibility. People's radios didn't work. We didn't know everybody. We didn't have all that stuff. And you fast forward, here we are 14 years later, and we have all of that. And one of the things we're trying, and that's because a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of energy went in by thousands and thousands of people to make that happen, right? It doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design and hard work and stuff. Our goal is to do the same thing for Asia as what we've done for Europe. And the Europeans will be there to help do this, right? We carry our, we stick together, we'll stay together. So when we roll into Asia, you'll see a lot of, tons of Europeans and countries from Latin America helping out, like Chile, when, they'll be very involved in, helping these nations get their special ops commands stood up and, making them more capable and more compatible and more interoperable.
When you talked about all of these coming together, people kind of paying it forward once it's done in Europe, then it travels to Asia, you almost have a global team that can, and I know you already said global, but what I mean by that is special ops being able to hit the ground in multiple countries, almost any country now, and have people on the ground to get things rolling. That it's got to help out the community in leaps and bounds by being able to just pick a country, hit the ground, and already have people on the ground waiting.
Yeah, everybody asks me all the time, why do you run all these events and stuff? And the reality is you can't just meet somebody once a year and expect to maintain or have a relationship. It just doesn't work like that, right? It's all, we call it random acts of touching or episodic events. You just can't do that. So we have a series of events scattered throughout the years. The intent is to convene the community. Some of them are land-based, some of them are air-based, some of them are maritime. But, these are what we're trying to do. We want people to know each other when their first name is major and captain and commander and lieutenant commander and stuff like that. Because when their first name is general or major general, lieutenant general, they have a relationship. This gets back to what I told you with Adam McCraven. You can't surge trust. If I have a personal relationship with these people, I mean, I've done things that you're not supposed to do, but in a war zone, but we said, screw it, it's a war, and you're my friend, and I'm going to do what I can to help you because we're all on the same team. And, help somebody out. And that's the kind of level of relationship you have to have. And that's kind of what the community, the foundation does, is we bring these people together and we try to give them an opportunity to build stronger and better relationships.
Well, I want to talk about some of those meetings when you get together. Now, I pulled up a couple of your symposiums that are coming up. The first one is in Europe. Some of your proposed topics of discussion are not nerds talking to nerds. It's crazy stuff that you guys are talking about. Senior leadership keynotes, collective defenses in Eastern Europe, warfare trends, developments and forecasts, telemedical support, human risk and performance, artificial intelligence, regional intelligence sharing, financial support and procurement, SOF recruitment and retention. It's all those things that I think that you used to start this foundation. All of those topics seem like things that you had to learn to get this going off the ground. Now, the interesting was the one in the United States where you have cryptocurrency seminars, life transition seminars. That's shit that people don't talk about. Cryptocurrency and stuff is not something that normal seminars talk about. And I feel like you guys are trying to cover everything, which helps out those transitioning, because you talk to a lot of guys that transition and they lose purpose, and this gives them purpose again. They have something they can go to, even if it's these symposiums and stuff. It's letting them know that there is life there after the military.
Yeah, so in 2015, we formed the SOF for Life program. And I'd love to sit here and tell you, hey, we wanted to take care of the community. It really started at a foundation small business committee meeting. And the small business guys like, how do we hire more special ops dudes? And I'm like, well, shit, how do you do it now? Well, we go to headhunters, we got data, we do, and it's all, catch can, word of mouth. There's no institutional anything there. And then, what you find is that most of the people in the special ops community don't know how to prepare themselves for transition. And so what the company's actually seeing is a mess. The person could be awesome, but because the person that doesn't know what they're doing, it doesn't come across that way. So we formed the SOF for Life program. There's 3 nonprofits. There's the Honor Foundation, there's the Global SOF Foundation, and AFMA. And it started with us, and we were taking in resumes and we were storing them for all the individual members. And then, somebody says these resumes suck. Well, I'm not a resume guy. That's not what I do, And so we partnered with the Honor Foundation, who runs a 120-hour course training special ops people on how to transition. It's first class, world class. They spend about $10,000 per student on each one. It's amazing what they do. Their metrics are really high. They have about over 93% of them are placed within 30 days of retirement. Average salary is over $145,000. That's officer and NCO. About 80% go into the private sector, and about 20% go into the public sector. That's flipped over time. And they were only about 4 months older than we are. So we've been working together, both of us, I say, since birth, since we were both infants. We have a phenomenal relationship with that organization. They have a campus. They just formed a campus last week at Fort Bragg, North Carolina in Southern Pines. And it's going to help everybody in that location transition. They've got one in San Diego, they've got one in Virginia Beach, and they've got one down at Stone Bay for the MARSOC guys. As they get bigger and the more funding's available, they will proliferate more campuses throughout the special ops community. But they're second to none. It's really important that we help those people. I don't know if you've seen it. If you go to we have a SOF4life.org website. You should go and read the survey results. We do a survey it ends up being about every 3 years. It takes us a year to get the survey together. We send it out. We had almost 500 responses this year, but we asked medical questions for the first time, and we've got a community that's not healthy, right? And that's mentally, physically, spiritually, it's just not healthy. We all know it, while you're on active duty, you lie a lot, and people say, honor. That's bullshit. We lie. How you doing? Great. You can take one look at the person class. He's full of shit. He's hurting, but he'll never say anything because we don't select and assess people that think or act like that. We select you and assess you because you will go until the last drop of blood pumps through your heart. And so when you ask these people, do they have pain? They lie. Do you ask them, are they okay? Of course I'm okay. They lie, and they do that because they're committed to the mission and the organization. And they will often do that at the detriment to themselves and to the unit, right? And we're not very good at saying no to our partners and our teammates and stuff. And so as a community, we suck at it. It's hard to be a leader. It's easy to sit back and say, damn it, you ought to do this. But, I was guilty as anybody. I didn't want to be the person to tell them no. You just don't want to be like that. So we've committed a lot to helping these people. We're trying to make them better. Some of them are the smartest, best trained people in the world. They do some stupid shit. But that's normal. We do have bad people. That's normal. This is not a perfect world. We do have bad behavior, and bad behavior is bad behavior, we got to clean it up. You got to terminate it quickly. And historically we've done that. We go through episodic periods where we just get, a bunch of knuckleheads and we just kind of lose our way. And then, we kind of get our act together and we focus and we clean up the community a bit. And it's the tightest community I've ever seen in the world. Again, most of us grew up together. We're friends. We've buried a lot of our friends over the years. So, we were losing people well before 9/11, just everybody else got involved at that point. And the numbers went up, everything got a little bit more busy, for everybody. But, we just think the SOF for Life program is a great program. It's going to have a lasting effect on the community, and we're just getting started, just getting started.
Let's talk about one more thing. You are no stranger to podcast. I'm sure you were when you started it, but now you have the Soft Spot podcast. You do it with Chelsea Hamishin, and then Rick Lamb comes on. Is it Hamishin? Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Yeah, Chelsea Hamishin and Rick Lamb. You talk to SOF legends. Some of your topics have been homage to Spain's Green Berets, The Story of Soldiers, Just Cause, plus Slate 46 in the same episode. You have Operation Eagle Claw on there. And when you hear this, you talk to the people that were there. I mean, like the people that were in it. And so if people want to hear combat stories and want to hear it from the people that were on the ground, it's a fantastic podcast to listen to.
Yeah, we got so the problem you have in the SOF community is a lot of what you do is classified or sensitive, right? And so we're the quiet professionals. We tend to be silent professionals. We tend to have a lot of people that don't like the media, don't want to talk to the media. And in the age of the internet and social media stuff, we can't really do that, right? So we have to train ourselves to be better at that. We also have a service to our young people. I think, we need to capture oral history. We tend to relive things, and I think we owe it to our young people to capture the oral history. There's been a lot of great things that have been done by a lot of great men and women from our community. And I just think that, the podcasts do that. I mean, this is about Chelsea. I mean, if you've ever met her, that is the Ray Lewis of podcasts. That woman's got a motor like you have never seen in your life. I mean, I don't know how many hours she works a day, but it's damn near all of them. I mean, she enjoys it. I am investing in her more and more because she's insanely talented. She does videos, and I mean, she's just one of the most creative human beings I've been around in a long time. Her father, a great man, is a former Marine colonel. So she's been raised right, She's a phenomenal swimmer. So if she ever says you want to race in the pool, don't do it because she will embarrass you. I mean, she will absolutely flat put you away. I mean, she can swim with any SEAL team dudes. Oh, yeah, she can get it on, man. I think she can still compete competitively in a lot of those things. So I think she did the Tampa Bay swim last year. It was 4 or 5 miles out in the bay and back. It was cold too. So, but she did a great job. She's done a great job with these. And the other thing is Rick Lamb. Rick and I have been together since Panama days in the 80s. He's a legend. I mean, he's what makes our community special. Rick is a young man from Iowa that's salt of the earth. Got his first Silver Star at Panmunjom, killed 7 or 9 North Koreans there. Not many people know that. Rick is one of the 2 people in the entire Special Forces regiment that was allowed to go back and forth from the Rangers and SF. Now that we're a branch, the infantry branch would never allow it, but, it's something Rick and I both think are, call it the crosswalk. General Dave Grange made it happen, but, it's just, they'll never let it happen. I'm a big believer in letting, people go back and forth from each of those things because I think you learn a lot from everybody. But hey, I'm just one of these old guys now. So Rick has gotten the Bull Simons Award, which is the highest award SOCOM gives. He's been inducted in the Commando Hall of Fame, the Ranger Hall of Fame, and last week he was designated the Honorary Regimental Sergeant Major of 1st Special Forces, which is all the Green Berets. So he loves stuff like this. He has every uniform almost down to every piece and part of it, from the 1916 expeditionary stuff into Mexico.
Wow.
All the way up to today. Today he's actually building a 30 caliber machine gun. He's got, all the weapons. I mean, authentic. Like he went and got the tax stamp to get the 10-inch barrel for the Thompson submachine gun.
Wow.
It's not automatic, but because you can't feed it. Those things eat a lot when they're automatic. So you got to.
That's amazing.
But he's got all that stuff. And he can tell you about each and every piece of the uniform, like in detail. Like, why they did this. And what you'll see is we did a thing with Carl Erickson, Sergeant Major Carl Erickson with the Tactical Rifleman. If you ever go to YouTube and watch those things, Rick walks through every single uniform. I think we filmed for like 8 hours. And it is amazing what we relearn over and over and over. And it was great seeing 2 sergeant majors realize, because I kept telling them, I'm sure some officer told you to do all that crap, but Yeah, we tend to relearn the same things over and over again. And I think, by having these podcasts and everything, I think we give young people um, a snapshot of history without reading a big old hairy book that's about that thick.
So what's next for you, Stu?
Well, right now, the foundation is in a growth spurt. We're trying to get the right corporate partners, not just any corporate partner. The first word's special for a reason. We want corporate partners and individual members that are part of the community that have the same ethos and standards that the community does. I think it's important. I think this is a really great moment in the special ops period of time. I think when you see things like Afghanistan, it's going to only make us, the community more busy, not less busy. And my concern is I don't think we have enough of us, and you can't replicate us, right? So we're going to have to rely on more partners everywhere to do that. We're going to have to build better networks, better alliances with our partners, get them up to speed. They're going to have to be more involved because you just can't make enough special ops. It's just physically impossible. But yeah, we're focused on Asia's coming up here real soon, and we're just trying to do everything a little bit better. When you start out in a startup, you're just flying by the seat of your pants, man. You're just every day's a bar fight. As we get a little bit more mature, you got to kind of institutionalize a lot of the things you do, and that's what we're trying to do now. We're trying to get better. We want to be, we don't want to just do it. We want to do it really, really, really well, like to the point where people go, damn. And that's what we're focused on now. I think what we do now is really good. But we're pretty critical of each other. And I think what we really want to do is make it amazing, make all of our events an experience, where people just, are blown away by what we do. That's kind of the direction we want to go.
Well, to kind of wrap this up, it was amazing to talk to you, just to hear these stories, hear stuff that people would have never heard. I would have never thought about the German border. I would have never thought about the things that you did over in Panama. But if you want more of Stu and you want to help out this organization, you can find him at the Global SOF, and that is at gsof.org. And with the SOF for Life that he was talking about, you can find them at SOFFORLIFE.org. Once again, to find him, gsof.org, and then the SOFforlife.org. That's going to be it for tonight. Stu, it was a pleasure and an honor to have you on. If you guys want more of me, you can find me on Twitter at DoublespeakDJ. You can find me on Facebook at the DTD Podcast, and you can find me on YouTube at the DTD Podcast. Also, remember, I'm on all the podcast sites, so if you want to hear these stories, you can find us anywhere there. Remember, the best stories are true, and you come here every week because we give them to you. That's Stu. I'm DJ. This has been the show. We'll catch you guys on the next one. See you later.
Thanks.